Chapter 15, Leadership. The do's and don'ts for management. The do's for management. Set clear goals and objectives for your team. Provide regular feedback to your team members. Communicate clearly and frequently with your team. Lead by example and demonstrate the behavior you expect from them. Delegate tasks appropriately to all the team members. Recognize and reward good performance. And develop a positive and supportive work environment. The don'ts for management. Don't micromanage your team. Don't play favorites or show bias towards certain team members. Don't make promises you cannot keep. Don't ignore the opinions and ideas of your team members. Don't blame others for your mistakes. Don't avoid conflict or difficult conversations. Don't be inflexible or unwilling to adapt to change. Further do's and don'ts of management. The do's for management. Foster open and honest communication with the team. Encourage creativity and innovation. Provide opportunities for growth and development for your team members. Empower your team to make decisions and take ownership of their work. Foster a culture of accountability and responsibility. Encourage collaboration and teamwork. And lead team with empathy and understanding. The don'ts for management. Don't overlook the importance of work-life balance for yourself and your team. Don't overwork your team and expect them to work long hours consistently. Don't make decisions without considering the impact on your team. Don't be insensitive or dismissive of your team members' needs and concerns. Don't micromanage your team members' personal lives or impose unnecessary rules. Don't discourage creativity or experimentation. Don't overlook the importance of training and development for yourself and your team. The do's and don'ts for leadership. The do's for leadership. Set clear goals and objectives for your team. Communicate clearly and frequently with your team. Lead by example and demonstrate the behavior that you expect. Delegate tasks appropriately to the team members. Recognize and reward good performance. Encourage creativity and innovation. Foster a culture of accountability and responsibility. And encourage collaboration and teamwork. Don'ts for leadership. Don't micromanage your team. Don't play favorites towards a certain team member. Don't make promises you can't keep. Don't blame others for your mistakes. Don't ignore the opinions and ideas of your other team members. Don't avoid conflict or difficult conversations. Don't be inflexible or unwilling to adapt to change. And don't overwork your team or expect them to work long hours consistently. Further do's and don'ts for leadership. The do's for leadership. Lead with empathy and understanding. Show appreciation for your team members' contributions. Encourage a healthy work-life balance. Set achievable deadlines and manage expectations. Continuously learn and improve as a leader. Develop a vision for your team and inspire them to work towards it. Foster open and honest communication within the team. Empower your team to make decisions and take ownership of their work. Don'ts for leadership. Don't be insensitive or dismissive of your team members' needs. Don't micromanage your team members' personal lives or impose unnecessary rules. Don't discourage creativity or experimentation. Don't ignore conflicts or tensions within the team. Don't be disrespectful or rude to the team members. Don't ignore the importance of recognizing and rewarding good performance. Don't be dishonest or deceitful with your team members, and don't discourage training and development for yourself and the team as well.
Unethical practices of management. Discrimination based on race, gender, religion, or other personal characteristics. Harassment, bullying, or intimidation of employees. Nepotism or favoritism towards friends or family members. Insider trading or other forms of financial fraud. Accounting irregularities or misrepresentations. Bribery, kickbacks, or other forms of corruption. Misuse of company resources for personal gain, misrepresenting the quality or safety of products or services, environmental violations or pollution, violations of labor laws including wage and hour regulations, discriminatory hiring or promotion practices, retaliation against whistleblowers or employees who report unethical behavior, failing to protect confidential or sensitive information, creating a hostile work environment that affects employee well-being and productivity, failing to comply with applicable laws, regulations, and ethical standards. Glossary terms of Chapter 15 Leadership. Alienated follower, a person who is an independent, critical thinker but is passive in the organization. Authentic leadership, leadership by individuals who know and understand themselves, who espouse and act consistent with higher order ethical values and who empower and inspire others with their openness and authenticity. Charismatic leader, a leader who has the ability to inspire and motivate people to transcend their expected performance even to the point of personal sacrifice. Coercive, coercive power, power that stems from the authority to punish or recommend punishment. Conformist, a follower who participates actively in the organization but does not use critical thinking skills. Consideration describes the extent to which a leader is sensitive to subordinates, respects their ideas and feelings, and establishes mutual trust. Contingency approach, a model of leadership that describes the relationship between leadership style and a specific situation. Critical thinking, thinking independently and being mindful of the effect of one's behavior on achieving goals. Effective follower, a critical independent thinker who actively participates in the organization. Expert power, power that results from a leader's special knowledge or skill in the tasks performed by subordinates. Humility, being unpretentious and modest rather than arrogant and prideful. Influence, the effect a person's actions have on the attitudes, values, beliefs, or behaviors of others. Describes the extent to which a leader is task oriented and directs subordinates' work activities towards goal accomplishment. Interactive leadership, a leadership style characterized by values such as inclusion, collaboration, relationship building, and caring. Leadership, the ability to influence people toward the attainment of organizational goals. Leadership grid, a two-dimensional leadership model that measures the leader's concern for people and concern for production to categorize the leader in one of the five different leadership styles. Legitimate power, power that stems from a manager's formal position in an organization and the authority granted by that position. Neutralizer, a situational variable that counteracts a leadership style and prevents the leader from displaying certain behaviors. Passive follower, a person who exhibits neither critical independent thinking nor active participation. Power, the potential ability to influence the behavior of others. Power, the potential ability to influence the behavior of others. Pragmatic survivor, a follower who has qualities of all four styles depending on which fits the prevalent situation. Referent power, power that results from characteristics that command subordinates identification with, respect and admiration for and desire to emulate the leader. Reward power, power that results from the authority to bestow rewards. Servant leader, a leader who serves others by working to fulfill followers' needs and goals, as well as to achieve the organization's larger mission. Situational model, a leadership model that links the leader's behavioral style with the readiness level of followers, strengths, natural talents, and abilities that have been supported and reinforced with learned knowledge and skills. Substitute for leadership, a situational variable that makes a leadership style redundant or unnecessary. Traits distinguishing personal characteristics such as intelligence, self confidence, energy, and independence. Transactional leader, a leader who clarifies subordinates' roles and task requirements, initiates structure, provides reward, and displays consideration for followers. Transformational leader, a leader distinguished by a special ability to bring about innovation and change by creating an inspirational and inspiring vision, shaping values, building relationships, and providing meaning for followers. Uncritical thinking, failing to consider the possibilities beyond what one is told, accepting others' ideas without thinking, vision, an attractive, ideal future that is credible yet not readily attainable. Nature of leadership. There are as many variations among leaders as there are among other individuals, and many different styles of leadership can be effective. Among all the ideas and writings about leadership, three aspects stand out: people, influence, and goals. Leadership occurs among people, involves the use of influence, and is used to attain goals. Influence means that the relationship among people is not passive. Moreover, influence is designed to achieve some end or goal. Thus, leadership is defined here is the ability to influence people towards attainment of goals. Leaders are involved with other people in the achievement of goals. Leadership is reciprocal, occurring among people. Leadership is a people activity distinct from administrative paperwork or problem solving activities. We have looked at various organizations that are experimenting with bosslessness, but every team and organization need leadership. Being a leader can be more powerful than being a boss. Contemporary leadership. The concept of leadership evolves as the needs of organization change. That is, the environmental context in which leadership is practiced influences which approach might be most effective, as well as what kinds of leaders are most admired by society. The technology, economic conditions, labor conditions, and social and cultural mores of the time all play a vital role. A significant influence on leadership styles in recent years is the turbulence and uncertainty of the environment, ethical and economic difficulties, corporate governance concerns, globalization, changes in technology, new ways of working, shifting employees' expectations, and significant social transitions have contributed to a shift in how we think about and practice leadership. For approaches that are in tune with leadership for today's turbulent times are level 5 leadership, servant leadership, authentic leadership, and interactive leadership, which has been associated with women's style of leading. Level 5 leadership. A study conducted by Jim Collins and his research associates identified the critical importance of what Collins called level 5 leadership in transforming companies from merely good to truly great organizations. As described in his book Good to Great: Why Some Companies Make the Leap and Others Don't. Level 5 leadership refers to the highest level in a hierarchy of managers' capability. A key characteristic of level 5 leaders is an almost complete lack of ego, humility, coupled with a fierce resolve to do what is best for the organization. Well, humility means being unpretentious and modest rather than arrogant and prideful. In contrast to the view of great leaders as larger than life personalities with strong egos and big ambitions. Level 5 leaders often seem shy and self effacing, although they accept full responsibility for mistakes, poor results, or failures. Level 5 leaders give credit for successes to other people. Level 5 leaders build organizations based on solid values that go far beyond just making money, with an unwavering resolve to do whatever is needed to make the company successful over the long term. An example of a leader who demonstrates level 5 leadership qualities is Sir Terry Leahy, who recently retired after more than a decade leading Britain's Tesco chain of supermarkets. That's a long and successful tenure for a leader that most people know little about. Leahy didn't court personal publicity much to jargon of journalists, and he put his energies into promoting Tesco and its employees rather than himself. Level 5 leaders like Sir Terry Leahy are extremely ambitious for their companies rather than for themselves. This attitude becomes highly evident in the area of succession planning. Level 5 leaders Develop a solid corps of leaders throughout the organization so that when they leave, the company can continue to thrive and grow even stronger. Egocentric leaders, by contrast, often set their successors up for failure because it will be a testament to their own greatness if the company doesn't perform well without them. Rather than building an organization around a genius with 1,000 helpers, level 5 leaders want everyone to develop to their fullest potential. Servant leadership. Some leaders operate from the assumption that work exists for the development of the worker as much as the worker exists to do the work. The concept of servant leadership, first described by Robert Greenleaf in 1970, has gained renewed interest in recent years as companies recover from ethical scandals and compete to attract and retain the best human talent. A servant leader transcends self-interest to serve others, the organization, and society. Marlin Carlson Neslin, former chairman and CEO of Carlson Companies, says being a true leader means that you have to subordinate your own emotions, your own desires, even make decisions on behalf of the whole that might conflict with what you would do on an individual basis. A stunning example of this occurred in the spring of 2009 when a US flagged cargo ship, the Mark Alamba, was seized and raided by Somali pirates. Captain Richard Phillips ordered crew members of the unarmed ship not to fight and gave himself up as a hostage to free the ship and crew. In organizations, servant leaders operate on two levels: for the fulfillment of their subordinate goals and needs, and for the realization of the larger purpose or mission of their organization. Servant leaders give things away: power, ideas, information, recognition, credit for accomplishment, even money. Servant leaders often work in the non-profit world because it offers a natural way to apply their leadership drive and skills to serve others. But servant leaders also succeed in business. In 2013, for the second year in a row, Lenovo CEO Yang shared 3.25 million of his 4.23 million bonus with hourly manufacturing workers to recognize their role in the company's success. 14 Fred Keller has built a $250 million plastics manufacturing company, Cascade Engineering, by continuously asking one question: what good can we do? Keller started the business 40 years ago with 6 employees. Today it has 1,000 employees in 15 business divisions. Keller has made society responsibility a cornerstone of the business. The company offers job to welfare recipients. Keller has also donated large amounts to various philanthropic causes both as an individual and through Cascade. Authentic leadership. Another popular concept in leadership today is the idea of authentic leadership, which refers to individuals who know and understand themselves, who espouse and act with consistent with higher order ethical values, and who empower and inspire others with their openness and authenticity. To be authentic means being real, staying true to one's value and beliefs, and acting based on one's true self rather than emulating what others do. Authentic leaders inspire trust and commitment because they respect diverse viewpoints, encourage collaboration, and help others learn, grow, and develop as leaders. Key characteristics of authentic leaders are: authentic leaders pursue their purpose with passion. Leaders who lead without a purpose can fall prey to greed and the desires of the ego. When leaders demonstrate a high level of passion and commitment to a purpose, they inspire commitment from followers. Authentic leaders practice solid values. Authentic leaders have values that are shaped by their personal beliefs, and they stay true to them even under pressure. People come to know what the leader stands for, which inspires trust. Authentic leaders lead with their hearts as well as their heads. All leaders sometimes have to make tough choices, but authentic leaders maintain a compassion for others as well as the courage to make difficult decisions. Authentic leaders establish connected relationships. Authentic leaders build positive and enduring relationships, which makes followers want to do their best. In addition, authentic leaders surround themselves with good people and work to help others grow and develop. Authentic leaders demonstrate self discipline. A high degree of self control and self discipline keeps leaders from taking excessive or unethical risks that could harm others and the organization. When authentic leaders make mistakes, they openly admit them. Gender differences. Some of the general characteristics associated with level 5 leaders and authentic leaders are also hallmarks of interactive leadership, which has been found to be associated with female leaders. Interactive leadership means that the leader favors a consensual and collaborative process and influence drives from relationships rather than position, power, and formal authority. Although both men and women can practice interactive leadership, research indicates that women's style of leadership is typically different from that of most men and is particularly suited to today's organizations. When leadership development firm Zenger Folkman surveyed more than 7,200 business people in 2011 about leaders in their organizations, women were rated as better overall leaders. Using data from actual performance evaluations, one study found that when rated by peers, subordinates, and bosses, female managers scored significantly higher than men on abilities such as motivating others, fostering communication, and listening. Another study of leaders and their followers in business, universities, and government agencies found that women were rated higher on social and emotional skills, which are crucial for interactive leadership.
Leadership, on the other hand, promotes vision and change. Leadership means questioning the status quo and being willing to take reasonable risks so that outdated, unproductive, or socially irresponsible norms can be replaced to meet new challenges. Leadership cannot replace management, it should be in addition to management. Good management is needed to help organization meet current commitments, while good leadership is needed to move the organization into the future. Leadership's power comes from being built on the foundation of a well managed organization. Leader and manager qualities. As shown in the exhibit 15.4, management and leadership reflect two different sets of qualities and skills that frequently overlap within a single individual. Leadership traits. Early efforts to understand leadership success focused on the leader's traits. Traits are the distinguishing personal characteristics of a leader, such as intelligence, honesty, self confidence, and even appearance. The early research looked at the leaders who had achieved a level of greatness and hence was referred to as the great man approach. The idea was relatively simple: find out what made these people great and select future leaders who already exhibited the same traits or could even learn to develop them. Generally, early research found only a weak relationship between personal traits and leader success. In recent years, interest in examining leadership traits has re-emerged. In addition to personality traits, physical, social, and work-related characteristics of leaders have been studied. However, these characteristics do not stand alone. The appropriateness of a trait or set of traits depends on the leadership situation. Effective leaders typically possess varied traits, and no single leader can have a complete set of characteristics that is appropriate for handling any problem, challenge, or opportunity that comes along. Leaders must have a variety of traits, and these traits must be combined to achieve the goals. In addition, traits that are typically considered positive can sometimes have negative consequences, and traits sometimes considered negative can have positive consequences. Therefore, rather than just understanding their traits, the best leaders recognize and hone their strengths. Strengths are natural talents and abilities that have been supported and reinforced with learned knowledge and skills and provide each individual with his or her best tools for accomplishment and satisfaction. Every manager has a limited capacity. Those who become good leaders are the ones who tap into their key strengths and can make a difference. Effective leadership isn't about having the right traits, but rather about finding the strengths that one can best exemplify and apply as a leader. Personal characteristics of a leader. Exhibit 15.5 summarizes the physical, social, and personal leadership characteristics that have received the greatest research support. Behavioral approaches. The inability to define effective leadership based solely on traits led to an interest in looking at the behavior of leaders and how it might contribute to leadership success or failure. Two basic leadership behaviors identified as important for leadership are attention to tasks and attention to people. Two types of behavior that have been identified as applicable to effective leadership in a variety of situations and time periods are task oriented behavior and people oriented behavior. Although they are not the only important leadership behaviors, concern for tasks and concern for people must be shown at some reasonable level. Thus, many approaches to understanding leadership use these meta categories or broadly defined behavior categories as a basis of study and comparison. Important early research programs on leadership were conducted at The Ohio State University and the University of Michigan. The Ohio State Studies. Ohio State researchers identified two major behaviors they called consideration and initiating structure. Consideration falls in the category of people oriented behavior and is the extent to which leader is mindful of subordinates, respects their ideas and feelings, and establishes mutual trust. Initiating structure is the degree of task behavior, that is, the extent to which the leader is task oriented and directs subordinate work activities towards goal attainment. Studies suggest that effective leaders may be high on consideration and low on initiating structure, or low on consideration and high on initiating structure, depending upon the situation. The Michigan State Studies. Research at the University of Michigan at about the same time also considered task and people oriented behaviors by comparing the behavior of effective and ineffective supervisors. The most effective supervisors were those who established high performance goals and displayed supportive behaviors towards subordinates. These were referred to as employee centered leaders. The less effective leaders were called job centered leaders. They tended to be less concerned with goal achievement and human needs in favor of meeting schedules, keeping costs low, and achieving production efficiency. The Leadership Grid. Building on the work of the Ohio State and Michigan studies, Robert R. Blake and Jane S. Moten of the University of Texas proposed a two-dimensional theory called the managerial grid, which was later restated by Robert R. Blake and Ann Adams Mackenzie as the leadership grid. The model and five of its major management styles are depicted in the exhibit 15.6. Each axis on the grid is a 9-point scale with 1 meaning low concern and 9 meaning high concern. Team management 9-9 is often considered the most effective style and is recommended for leaders because organization members work together to accomplish tasks. Country club management 1-9 occurs when the primary emphasis is given to people rather than to work outputs. Authority compliance management 9-1 occurs when the efficiency in operations is the dominant orientation. Middle of the road management 5-5 reflects a moderate amount of concern for both people and production. Impoverished management 1-1 means the absence of management philosophy. Managers exert little effort towards interpersonal relationships or work accomplishment. The contingency approach. Dennis Morrison, CEO of Campbell Soup Company, is a strong proponent of empowerment and employee engagement. She has been referred to as tough on the issues but tender on the people. Morrison is known to be patient and supportive, even though she can make difficult operational decisions. On the other hand, Pamela Forbes Lieberman, the former president and CEO of TrueServe Corporation, was once called the Dragon Lady by employees at a former job. She embraced the name and even hung a watercolor of a fire-breathing dragon on her office wall to let the people know that she didn't mind being known as the hard-nosed manager. No laid-back approach for Lieberman. How can two people with widely different styles both be effective leaders? The answer lies in understanding the contingency approaches to leadership, which explore how the organizational situation influences leader effectiveness. Contingency approaches include the situational model based on the works of Paul Hersey and Kenneth Blanchard, the leadership model developed by Friedler and his associates, and the substitutes for leadership concept. The situational theory of leadership. The situational model of leadership, which originated with Hersey and Blanchard, is an interesting extension of the behavioral theories summarized in the leadership grid. This approach focuses a great deal of attention on the characteristics of followers in determining appropriate leadership behavior. The point of the situation model is that subordinates vary in readiness, which is determined by the degree of willingness and ability that a subordinate demonstrates while performing a specific task. Willingness refers to a combination of confidence, commitment, and motivation, and a follower may be high or low on any of these variables. Ability refers to the amount of knowledge, experience, and demonstrated skill that a subordinate brings to the task. Effective leaders adapt their style in according to the readiness level of the people they are managing. People low in readiness because of little ability or training or insecurity need a different leadership style than those who are high in readiness and have a good ability, skills, confidence, and willingness to work. The situational model of leadership. According to the situational model, a leader can adopt one of four leadership styles as shown in the exhibit 15.7. The telling style S1 is a highly dictating style and involves giving explicit directions about how tasks should be accomplished. The selling style S2 is one where the leader explains decisions and gives subordinates a chance to ask questions and gain clarity and understanding about the work. The participating style S3 is one where the leader shares ideas with subordinates, gives them a chance to participate and facilitate decision making. The fourth style, the delegating style S4, provides little direction and little support because the leader turns over responsibility for decisions and their implementation to subordinates. Exhibit 15.7 summarizes the situational relationship between leader style and follower readiness. The S1 telling style has the highest probability of successfully influencing low readiness followers who are unable or unwilling to take responsibility for their own task behavior. The leader is specific, telling people exactly what to do, how to do it, and when to do it. The S2 selling and S3 participating styles work for followers at moderate to high readiness levels. For example, followers might lack some education and experience for the job but have high confidence and interest and willingness to learn. As shown in the exhibit, the S2 selling style is effective in this situation because it involves giving direction, but it also includes seeking input from others and clarifying tasks rather than simply instructing that they be performed. When followers have the necessary skills and experience but are somewhat insecure in their abilities or lack high willingness, the S3 participating style enables the leader to guide followers' development and act as a resource for advice and assistance. When followers demonstrate very high readiness, the S4 delegating style can effectively be used. Because of the high readiness of level of followers, the leader can delegate responsibility for decisions and their implementation to subordinates who have the skills, abilities, and positive attitudes to follow through. The leader provides a general goal and sufficient authority to do the task as the followers see fit.
Fiedler's contingency theory. Whereas the situational model focused on the characteristics of followers, Fiedler and his associates looked at some other elements of the organizational situation to assess when one leadership style is more effective than other. The starting point for Fiedler's theory is the extent to which the leader style is task-oriented or relationship-oriented. Fiedler considered a person's leadership style to be relatively fixed and difficult to change. Therefore, the basic idea is to match the leader's style with the situation most favorable for his or her effectiveness. By diagnosing leadership style and the organizational situation, the correct fit can be arranged. Situation: favorable or unfavorable. The suitability of a person's leadership style is determined by whether the situation is favorable or unfavorable to the leader. The favorability of a leadership situation can be analyzed in terms of three elements: the equality of relationships between leader and followers, the degree of task structure, and the extent to which the leader has formal authority over followers. How leader style fits the situation. A situation would be considered highly favorable to the leader when leader-member relationships are positive, tasks are highly structured, and the leader has formal authority over followers. In this situation, followers trust, respect, and have confidence in the leader. The group's tasks are clearly defined, involve specific procedures, and have clear, explicit goals. In addition, the leader has formal authority to direct and evaluate followers, along with the power to reward or punish. In a highly unfavorable situation, followers have little respect for or confidence and trust in the leader. Tasks are vague and ill-defined and lack clear-cut procedures and guidelines. The leader has little formal authority to direct subordinates and does not have the power to issue rewards or punishments. When Fiedler examined the relationships among leadership style and situational favorability, he found the pattern shown in the upper portion. Task-oriented leaders are more effective when the situation is either highly favorable or highly unfavorable. Relationship-oriented leaders are more effective in situations of moderate favorability. The task-oriented leader excels in the favorable situation because everyone gets along, the task is clear, and the leader has power. All that is needed is for someone to lead the charge and provide direction. Similarly, if the situation is highly unfavorable to the leader, a great deal of structure and task direction is needed. A strong leader will define task structure and establish strong authority. Because leader-member relations are poor anyway, a strong task orientation will make no difference in the leader's popularity. Substitute for leadership. The contingency leadership approaches considered so far focus on the leader's style, the subordinate's nature, and the situation's characteristics. The final contingency approach suggests that situational variables can be so powerful that they actually substitute for or neutralize the need for leadership. This approach outlines those organizational settings in which a leadership style is unimportant or unnecessary. A substitute for leadership makes the leadership style unnecessary or redundant. For example, highly professional subordinates who know how to do their task do not need a leader who initiates structure for them and tells them what to do. A neutralizer counteracts the leadership style and prevents the leader from displaying certain behaviors. For example, if a leader has absolutely no position power or is physically removed from subordinates, the leader's ability to give directions to subordinates is greatly reduced. Substitutes and neutralizers for leadership. The situational variables that tend to substitute for or neutralize leadership characteristics. Situational variables in Exhibit 15.9 include characteristics of the group, the task, and the organization itself. When followers are highly professional and experienced, both leadership styles are less important. People do not need much direction or consideration. With respect to task characteristics, highly structured tasks substitute for a task-oriented style, and a satisfying task substitutes for a people-oriented style. With respect to the organization itself, group cohesiveness substitutes for both leader styles. Formalized rules and procedures substitute for leader task orientation. Physical separation of leader and subordinate neutralizes both leadership styles. The value of the situations described in Exhibit 15.9 is that they help leaders avoid leadership overskill. Leaders should adopt a style with which to complement the organizational situation. Consider the work situation for bank tellers. A bank teller performs highly structured tasks, follows clearly written rules and procedures, and has little flexibility in terms of how to do the work. The head teller should not adopt a task-oriented style because the organization already provides structure and direction. The head teller should concentrate on a people-oriented style to provide a more pleasant work environment. In other organizations, if group cohesiveness or intrinsic satisfaction meets employees' social needs, the leader is free to concentrate on task-oriented behaviors. The leader can adopt a style complementary to the organizational situation to ensure that both the task needs and people needs of the work group will be met. Charismatic and transformational leadership. Research has also looked at how leadership can inspire and motivate people beyond their normal levels of performance. Some leadership approaches are more effective than others for bringing about high levels of commitment and enthusiasm. Two types within a substantial impact are charismatic and transformational. Charisma has been referred to as a fire that ignites followers' energy and commitment, producing results above and beyond the call of duty. The charismatic leader has the ability to inspire and motivate people to do more than they would normally do, despite obstacles and personal sacrifice. Followers are willing to put aside their own interests for the sake of the team, department, or organization. The impact of charismatic leaders normally comes from stating a lofty vision of an imagined future that employees identify with. Number 2, displaying an ability to understand and empathize with followers. And 3, empowering and trusting subordinates to accomplish results. Charismatic leaders tend to be less predictable because they create an atmosphere of change, and they may be obsessed by visionary ideas that excite, stimulate, and drive other people to work hard. One of the best known charismatic leaders in the business world in recent years was Apple's late co-founder and CEO Steve Jobs. Jobs commanded a rock star-like following. The tale of how he dropped out of college, co-founded Apple, got fired from his own company, returned years later to save it, and then transformed it by creating a whole new business within the iPod and iPhone is the stuff of legend. Yet Jobs could be immature, impatient, and downright cruel at times. His demanding leadership could undermine performance as well as inspire it. Despite this, many people, even some he mistreated, admired and respected. Some have been said worshipped Steve Jobs. His energizing personality and his refusal to sell out made people want to be around him and want to be like him. 58. As the example of Steve Jobs illustrates, there can be both positive and negative aspects of charisma. When the charismatic leaders respond to organizational problems in terms of the needs of the entire group rather than their own emotional needs, they can have a powerful, positive influence on organizational performance. As with the level 5 and authentic leadership approaches that we discussed earlier in the chapter, humility typically plays an important part in distinguishing whether a charismatic leader will work to benefit primarily the larger organization or use his or her gifts for ego building and personal gain. Charismatic leaders are skilled in the art of visionary leadership. A vision is an attractive, ideal future that is credible yet not readily attainable. Vision is an important component of both charismatic and transformational leadership. Visionary leaders speak to the hearts of employees, letting them be a part of something bigger than themselves. These leaders have an emotional impact on subordinates because they strongly believe in the vision and communicate it to others in a way that makes the vision real, personal, and meaningful. Transformational versus transactional leaders. Transformational leaders are similar to the charismatic leaders, but they are distinguished by their special ability to bring about innovation and change by recognizing followers' needs and concerns, providing meaning, challenging need people to look at old problems in new ways, and acting as role models for the new values and behaviors. Transformation leaders inspire followers not just to believe in the leader personally, but to believe in their own potential to imagine and create a better future for the organization. Transformational leaders create significant change in both followers and the organization. Transformational leadership can be better understood in comparison to transactional leadership. Transactional leaders clarify the role and task requirements of subordinates, initiate structure, provide appropriate rewards, and try to be considerate and meet the initiate structure, provide appropriate rewards and try to be considerate and meet the social needs of subordinates. The transactional leader's ability to satisfy subordinates may improve productivity. Transactional leaders excel at management functions. They are hardworking, tolerant, and fair-minded. They take pride in keeping things running smoothly and efficiently. Transactional leaders often stress the impersonal aspects of performance such as plans, schedules, and budgets. They have a sense of commitment to the organization and conform to organizational norms and values. Transactional leadership is important to all organizations, but leading change requires a different approach. Transformational leaders have the ability to lead changes in the organization's mission, strategy, structure, and culture, as well as to promote innovation in products and technologies. Transformational leaders do not rely solely on tangible rules and incentives to control specific transactions with followers. They focus on intangible qualities such as vision, shared values, and ideas to build relationships, give larger meaning to diverse activities, and find common ground to enlist followers in the change process. For example, Michael Rhee, former Chancellor to the District of Columbia Public Schools, acted as a transformational leader to revamp one of the most expensive, worst performing school systems in the country. Studies show that transformational leadership has a positive impact on follower development and follower performance. Moreover, transformational leadership skills can be learned and are not ingrained personality characteristics. However, some personality traits may make it easier for a leader to display transformational leadership behaviors. Followership. No discussion of leadership is complete without a consideration of followership. Indeed, despite the focus on leadership, everybody in an organization is both a follower and a leader. Leadership matters, but without effective followers, no organization can survive. People have different expectations of what constitutes a good follower versus a good leader, as illustrated by the results of studies asking people to rank the desired characteristics of leaders and followers. There may be some differences, but overall many of the qualities that define a good follower are the same qualities as those possessed by a good leader. Leaders can develop an understanding of their followers and create the conditions that help them be most effective. Styles of followership. One model of followership is illustrated in Exhibit 15.10. Robert E. Kelly conducted extensive interviews with managers and their subordinates and came up with 5 follower styles, which are categorized according to 2 dimensions, as shown in the exhibit. The first dimension is the quality of independent, critical thinking versus dependent. Independent critical thinkers are mindful of the effects of their own and others' behavior on achieving organizational goals. They can weigh the impact of their boss and their own decisions and offer constructive criticism, creativity, and innovation. Conversely, a dependent, uncritical thinker does not consider possibilities beyond what he or she is told, does not contribute to the cultivation of the organization, and accepts the supervisor's ideas without thinking. The second dimension of follower style is active versus passive behavior. An active behavior participates fully in the organization, engages in behavior that is beyond the limits of the job, demonstrates a sense of ownership, and initiates problem solving and decision making. A passive follower, by contrast, is characterized by a need for constant supervision and prodding by supervisors or superiors. Passivity is often regarded as laziness. A passive person does nothing that is not required and avoids added responsibility. The extent to which an individual is active or passive and is an independent, critical thinker or a dependent. Uncritical thinker determines whether the person will be an alienated follower, a passive follower, a conformist, a pragmatic survivor, or an effective follower as illustrated in Exhibit 15.10. The alienated follower is a passive, yet independent, critical thinker. Alienated employees are often effective followers who have experienced setbacks and obstacles, perhaps promises broken by their superiors. Thus they are capable, but they can focus exclusively on the shortcomings of their bosses. Often cynical, alienated followers are able to think independently, but they do not participate in developing solutions to the problems or deficiencies that they see. These people waste valuable time complaining about their boss without offering constructive feedback. The conformist participates actively in a relationship with the boss but does not use critical thinking skills. In other words, a conformist participates willingly, but without considering the consequences of what he or she is being asked to do, even at the risk of contributing to a harmful endeavor. A conformist is concerned only with avoiding conflict. The pragmatic survivor has qualities of all four extremes, depending on which style fits with the prevalent situation. This type of person uses whatever style best benefits his or her own position and minimizes risks. Pragmatic survivors often emerge when an organization is going through desperate times, and individuals find themselves doing whatever is needed to get through the difficulty. The passive follower exhibits neither critical independent thinking nor active participation. Being passive and uncritical, these people show neither initiative nor a sense of responsibility. Their activity is limited to what they are told to do. They accomplish things only with a great deal of supervision. Often this style is the result of micromanaging boss who encourages passive behavior. People learn that to show initiative, accept responsibility, or think creatively is not awarded, and may even be punished by the boss, so they grow increasingly passive. The effective follower is both a critical, independent thinker and active in the organization. Effective followers behave the same toward everyone, regardless of their position in the organization. They develop an equitable relationship with their leaders and do not try to avoid risks or conflict. These people are capable of self-management. They discern strengths and weaknesses in themselves and their bosses. They are committed to something bigger than themselves, and they work toward competency, solutions, and positive impact. Power and influence. Both followers and leaders use power and influence to get things done in organizations. Sometimes the terms power and influence are used synonymously, but there are distinctions between the two. Power is the potential ability to influence the behavior of others. Influence the effect that a person's actions have on the attitudes, values, beliefs, or behavior of others. Whereas power is the capacity to cause a change in a person, influence may be thought of as the degree of actual change. Most discussions of power include 5 types that are available to leaders, and these can be categorized as either hard power or soft power. Hard power is power that stems largely from a person's position of authority and includes legitimate, reward, and coercive power. Soft power includes expert power and referent power, which are based on personal characteristics and interpersonal relationships more than on a position of authority. Hard position power. The traditional manager's power comes from the organization. The manager's position gives him or her the ability to reward or punish subordinates to influence their behavior. Legitimate power, reward power, and coercive power are all forms of position power used by managers to change employee behavior. Power coming from a formal management position in an organization and the authority granted to it is called legitimate power. Once a person has been selected as a supervisor, most employees understand that they are obligated to follow his or her direction with respect to work activities. Subordinates accept this source of power as legitimate, which is why they comply. Another kind of power, reward power, stems from the authority to bestow rewards on other people. Managers may have access to formal rewards, such as pay increases or promotions. They also have at their disposal rewards such as praise, attention, and recognition. Managers can use rewards to influence subordinates' behavior. The opposite of reward power is coercive power. It refers to the authority to punish or recommend punishment. Managers have coercive power when they have the right to recommend punishment. Managers have coercive power when they have the right to fire or demote employees, criticize them, or withhold pay increases. If an employee does not perform as expected, the manager has the coercive power to reprimand him, but put a negative letter in his file, deny him a raise, and hurt his chances for a promotion. Personal soft power. Effective leaders do not rely solely on the hard power of their formal position to influence others. Personal soft power most often comes from internal sources such as individuals' special knowledge or personal characteristics. Power resulting from a person's special knowledge or skill regarding the task being performed is referred to as expert power. When someone is a true expert, others go along with recommendations because of his or her superior knowledge. Both followers and leaders can possess expert power. For example, some managers lead teams in which members have expertise that the leader lacks. Some leaders at top management levels may lack expert power because subordinates know more about technical details than they do. Referent power. Referent power comes from an individual's personal characteristic that command others' identification, respect, and admiration so that they can wish to emulate that individual. Referent power does not depend on a formal title or position. When employees admire a supervisor because of the way that she deals with them, the influence is based on referent power. Referent power is most visible in the area of charismatic leadership. In social and religious movements, we often see charismatic leaders who emerge and gain a tremendous following based solely on their personal power. Other sources of power. There are additional sources of power that are not linked to a particular person or position, but rather to the role that an individual plays in the overall functioning of the organization. People who show initiative, work beyond what is expected of them, take on undesirable but important projects, and show interest in learning about the organization and industry, often gain power as a result of this personal effort. People who are enmeshed in a network of relationships have greater power. A leader or employee with many relationships knows that what is going on in an organization and industry, whereas one has have few interpersonal connections, is often in the dark about important activities or changes. Networks of relationships are crucial in the political arena. For instance, information is a primary business resource, and people who have access to information and control over how and to whom it is distributed are typically powerful. To some extent, access to information is determined by a person's position in the organization. Top managers typically have access to more information than middle managers, who in turn have access to more information than lower level supervisors or frontline employees. Six, interpersonal influence tactics for leaders. Leaders often use a combination of influence strategies, and people who are perceived as having greater power and influence typically are those who use a wider variety of tactics. One survey of a few hundred leaders identified more than 4,000 different techniques that these people use to influence others. However, these tactics fall into basic categories that rely on understanding the principles that cause people to change their behavior and attitudes. Notice that most of these involve the use of personal power rather than relying solely on position power are the use of rewards and punishments. Number 1. Use rational persuasion. The most frequently used influence strategy is to apply effects, data, and logical argument to persuade others that a proposed idea, request, or decision is appropriate. Using rational persuasion can often be highly effective because most people have faith in effects and analysis. Rational persuasion is most successful when a leader has technical education, knowledge, and expertise related to the issue at hand. That is, in addition to facts and figures, people have to believe in the leader's credibility. Help people to like you. People would rather say yes to someone they like than to someone they don't. Effective leaders strive to create goodwill and favorable impressions. When a leader shows consideration and respect, treats people fairly, and demonstrates trust in others, people are more likely to want to help and support this person by doing what he or she asks. In addition, most people like a leader who makes them feel good about themselves. So leader should never underestimate the power of praise. Rely on the rule of reciprocity. Leaders can influence others through the exchange of benefits and favors. Leaders share what they have, whether it is time, resources, services, or emotional support. The feeling among people is nearly universal that others should be paid back for what they do, in one form or another. This unwritten rule of reciprocity means that leaders who do favors for others can expect that others will do favors for them in return. Number 4. Develop allies. Effective leaders develop networks of allies, people who can help the leader accomplish his or her goals. Leaders talk with followers and other outside formal meetings to understand their needs and concerns, as well as to explain problems and describe the leader's point of view. They strive to reach a meeting of minds with others about the best approach to a problem or a decision. 5. Ask for what you want. Another way to influence others is to make a direct and personal request. Leaders have to be explicit about what they want or they are not likely to get it. An explicit proposal is sometimes accepted simply because others have no better alternative. Also, a clear proposal or alternative will often receive support if other options are less well defined. 6. Appeal to higher authority. Sometimes to get things done, leaders have to use their formal authority as well as gain the support of people at higher levels to back them up. However, research has found that the key to successful use of formal authority is to be knowledgeable, credible, and trustworthy. That is to demonstrate expert and referent power as well as legitimate power. Managers who become known for their expertise, who are honest and straightforward with others, and who inspire trust can exert greater influence than those who simply issue orders. Research indicates that people rate leaders as more effective when they are perceived to use a variety of influence tactics. But not all managers use influence in the same way. Studies have found that leaders in human resources, for example, tend to use softer, more subtle approaches such as building goodwill, using favors, and developing allies, whereas those in finance are inclined to use harder, more direct tactics such as formal authority and assertiveness.